Hi everyone. Do you fancy a full moon? We've got one coming up very soon. Full moon in Scorpio, 23rd of April or the 24th of April, depending on where you are in the world. And for us in the UK, it's actually happening early hours of tomorrow morning, 24th of April, 48 minutes past midnight to be precise. So we've got this energy of the full moon coming in, and it's already been with us for a couple of days, to be honest with you. This is actually reminding us of what we need to release, what we need to purge, what we need to detach from. Full moon lunar energy is perfect to work with in terms of releasing, but of course full moons can also illuminate. And you may be thinking, I've had enough illumination recently, Kirsty, thank you. When are we going to get into the good stuff, you know? This is all actually helping us get into the good stuff, believe it or not, but it has been a time of it because of course we have recently had that big conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. Okay, we're now in Taurus season, of course. But that happened on the 21st of April for us in the UK. And of course, for other people in the world, it was the 20th. But they're still conjunct at the moment because they're close. But I'm talking about the exact conjunction that happened. So really heightening the energy of major, expansive change. And that could be change that we were already aware of, that was coming. It could have been sudden, unexpected change or sudden clarity or like an aha moment. Or it might have just highlighted or foreshadowed change that is needed or is coming. Okay, however it resonates for you, if it resonates at all. But major change, big planets coming together. Okay, and it's all about newness. It's all about that new reality we're trying to pave for ourselves, but could have been a sudden realization of something, anything like that. Okay, and of course we've just come out of the eclipse portal, so there's just been thing after thing after thing building the energy, but it's to get us into this position of strengthening our sovereignty. And there was a lot of focus on that during Aries season because of the eclipses, because of what was going on. So, you know, there's still a lot of energy in Aries now, by the way. So we're still being encouraged to really step into that sovereign role within our lives. And anything that's not in alignment with that when it comes to our path and purpose moving forward in the direction of sovereignty needs to be released. So, of course, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction following the eclipse portal that we had, and that activation window, if you like, has almost shown us change in some way, whether it's what's happened, a realization, or what needs to happen. Okay, and now this is about going deep with this full moon in Scorpio, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and Pluto is deep. It's not surface level, it's deep. This is purging from the depths of the soul. Okay, so that can be uncomfortable. It might be stuff that needs to come up, to be acknowledged, of course, to understand what it is in order to be released. And these are aspects that might have been illuminated to us already, as I've mentioned, but the full moon, as we know, also illuminates, because it illuminates the night sky. So it could shine a light well and truly on some deep stuff. And it could challenge deep emotions because Scorpio is a water sign. Scorpio is a fixed sign, as is Taurus, the opposite sign. That's where the moon and the sun opposite each other, okay, for a full moon. Fixed sign. So there almost feels like there is a fixed way or a fixed vision needed in terms of what needs to be released or what needs to be purged. It's the realization of that, and then it's being quite fixed about, okay, that's what I've got to do, no wavering or teetering around. That's how it feels. Okay, so we're not looking at more Piscean energy and I laugh because I'm a Pisces, that's kind of like, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, what am I doing, you know, head up in the clouds, that kind of thing. That's mutable energy. This is fixed energy. Okay, and we are in Taurus season, so we need to appreciate that the soul essence of the cosmos is in fixed earth energy. So this is about the reality of what's going on in our lives, the physical reality, and what we want to ground into that reality. So anything that's not serving us in that way, we need to have a fixed vision or approach on what needs to be released, what we need to detach from, what we need to purge. Okay, if you're sensitive to lunar energy, then it could be heavy purging of emotions going on. And you might think, where are these coming from? And going within, meditating might give you the answers if you're not sure, but you might be aware of what it is. Okay, and these could be patterns coming up from the past, and certainly from what's been illuminated to us already, and the change from that major conjunction that might have actually heightened or awakened within us. Okay. And I won't go into too much detail about all of that. It's either going to hit for you or it isn't. So this is about what do we need to release from a place of depth, okay, from the soul. And it might even be stuff that we've hidden from ourselves, because again, it's underneath the layers. That's where the scorpionic energy is, okay? So it could be very deep stuff that's going on that needs to be worked with and released, or could be illuminated to us in that way. So I'm going to show you the chart, of course, as I always do. And I have to say there is a lot to do with commitment as well, from what I can see in the astrology transits. And that is, from my interpretation of it, okay, it's to do with this commitment to the self, because it goes hand in hand with the sovereignty that I've been saying for quite a while. Okay, that's the direction we're heading. That's our healing journey as a collective, to heal the leadership within us. Okay, it doesn't have to relate to work as such, but we are the leaders of our own life. It's about creating the reality we want. It's going the direction of where we want to go. Okay, and upholding the sovereignty that is within us, that divine essence that's within us. Okay, to actually set our own rules, put our own boundaries in place, and to hold our head up high whilst we do this, to speak up for ourselves, to be very confident and empowered in who we are on a soul level, okay? And to focus on the self, not in a selfish way, but in a, look, this is me, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to pursue it, and having the courage to do that, okay? That can be hard for empathic people to do, by the way, because if you're so used to doing things for other people, and now all of this has actually turned the spotlight back on the self, that can be uncomfortable as well. So that's why, again, it could be an emotional time with the purging, because it's that realization of, I've neglected myself all this time. And it's not like you wouldn't change being a caring individual. This is about actually now having to think of what you want. And that can be difficult if you've never had to do it. So it's working with the energy in that way. And the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and or the eclipse portal may have already shown you that. But the full moon, as I mentioned, can also illuminate. So may illuminate things for you in that way. Okay. So I sidetracked there, sorry. And I do that quite a bit as a Pisces. But essentially, you know, this is about change in the direction of our sovereignty and feeling empowered to do that. Before we close out April, there are a few other things to mention. So on the 25th of April, not long after this full moon, Mercury will station direct. Yes. So 3.5 weeks of Mercury retrograde will be over. This Mercury retrograde, okay, because they do get a bad reputation, but all retrogrades are there to help us because they are periods of introspection. Mercury retrograde gets a bad rep because it can affect travel, it can affect technology. Okay, you could be like this on your phone. Why is my phone not doing anything, for example? And okay, if you feel that's a coincidence, that whatever, you know, but it does tend to happen a lot during Mercury retrograde. But because Mercury is all about thoughts and communication as well as technology and travel, of course, it is that introspection of getting our thoughts in order, getting our expression in order in whatever it might be. And in Aries, that's all about speaking up, standing up for ourselves in that way. So I felt that this Mercury retrograde was actually very positive because it's an introspective time. when we're already focusing on our sovereignty, to understand where we might need to speak up, to stand up for ourselves, okay, to express our sovereignty in that way. And depending on what house that's happening in for you, of course, look at your natal chart. You can check that out against the current transits. That's going to give you an idea for your journey uniquely. But as a collective, you know, we can look at that on the UK's chart. Of course, there's been a lot happening in the 10th house of inner authority and work. So that could be resonating for a lot of you out there. But it doesn't have to necessarily be that. This is just about speaking up for oneself and understanding what it is we need to say, who we need to say it to, why we're saying it, okay? And also getting our thoughts in alignment with that in terms of the path forward, because it's Aries energy, okay? And that's where the North Node is. And actually, in relation to that, when Mercury stations direct, and I think it is 1:55 p.m. on the 25th for us in the UK, so apply your own time zones as appropriate. That's the moment that he stations direct, okay? And then he'll start moving forward. But at that moment, there will be a conjunction with the North Node. So that is go time in terms of, okay, station direct, now, what do we need to do in terms of speaking up? And I'm not saying as soon as that moment comes, suddenly start, you know, get your speaker out and suddenly start shouting from the rooftops, I want this, I want that. I'm not saying that, but this is about empowerment to do with, okay, where we need to speak up, and then being able and feeling able to put that emotion in whatever way that needs to transpire, okay? The other thing that's happening is Venus is moving into Taurus, okay? And I think that's on the 29th of April. And then Mars is moving into Aries, okay? Home sign. So I feel quite positive about those two events. And I will be bringing more astrology updates on that. Of course, I'm here today to talk about the full moon. You think, come on then, Kirsty, talk about the full moon. But I'm just highlighting those other events because April hasn't even finished yet and there's still quite a bit going on. So when April does close out and we move into May, that's month number 5, okay? So that's all about change as well. But on the 2nd of May, Pluto will be going retrograde. And during his retrograde, he will move back into Capricorn. So that's almost like another window of opportunity to clean house when it comes to outdated structures, outdated rules and beliefs, okay, clearing up karmic stuff as well, before he then moves back into Aquarius later in the year. So again, I'll bring you more reports on that. And if you haven't already checked out my astrology video on the Pluto ingress into Aquarius that happened earlier this year, then check it out on my YouTube channel because I do mention that a bit, okay? But there's a lot still to come, is what I'm saying. There's a lot still to come. We need to just get through this full moon. And I will pull up the charts now. I've also got some oracle decks here to pull some extra messages. We'll see what the energy is saying at the end. Okay, and I will timestamp it as usual. Right, let's get into it. Okay. And put my specs on for this as well. All right, here we go then. Oosh. Okay, sorry, just adjusting. Full moon in Scorpio, 23rd or 24th of April, as I'm saying, all right? So 24th of April for us in the UK. I'm really struggling at the moment, actually. I don't know if a lot of you are in terms of what date it even is, because time seems to be blending into one. You know, the days seem to be blending in together, the weeks, the months, the seasons are just not like they used to be. It's just all a bit bizarre, isn't it? So yeah, it's just very strange. But there's a lot going on in the energy that would indicate that anyway. However, I'm going to take my specs off again because it's not working for me. So there we are. Right, here we've got the charts. Okay, you can see that we've got the moon up there with the arrow, okay, and many, many lines, and you'll be used to this from my astrology reports, okay, and there's more aspects going on. These are just the ones that I was drawn to intuitively, okay, and I appreciate that some of those colours look the same because now I'm seeing it on the screen The red looks the same as the orange there. So apologies for that if that's causing any confusion. I'll try and go into that as best I can. But we've got the moon here, okay, in Scorpio at 4 degrees 18. And opposite, of course, we've got the sun at 4 degrees 18. So Taurus versus Scorpio, again, that fixed energy. And we know that in Taurus, we've got Jupiter and Uranus after that conjunction, and you'll see they're still close. There's only 1 degree in it. And at that point, actually, Uranus being 59 minutes. So we'll shortly then be moving into 22 degrees. But, you know, this is at the time of the full moon. So we've got that big energy still going on in the sign of Taurus. And the trine that was there during the conjunction is still there. And that's the trine, which is a harmonious aspect in astrology between Jupiter and Uranus, Ceres, and Lilith. So all of those are in earth signs. So I refer to that as being, you know, the earth trine. This is about our reality because it's earth energy. It's about our 3D physical reality, the earth in which we're living, the reality that we're experiencing in our lives, and how that expansive change, if we're in alignment with our worth and values, is going to enable lots of expansion in our reality. And it comes from a lot of the shadow work that we've been doing. So it's almost like expansion through the shadows. Okay, so that energy is still there. We're still doing the shadow work. We're still addressing certain things. And this might be where the full moon comes in, because if there's been elements of shadow aspects coming up that need to be purged, so beliefs we've been telling ourselves, to say we're not worthy of certain things, whatever it might be, fears, doubts, anxieties, all of those things, we could work with the full moon to release them, because maybe we've understood this is a pattern of behavior that's coming up for me. And it's not working for me because I've evolved and now I've got this kind of higher perspective and wider awareness of this. So I need to really release this because it's been holding me back, and I'm not allowing it to hold me back anymore, because I'm sovereign and I'm moving forward in the direction of my path in terms of what I want, and I'm going to speak up about it. Okay, and if you're thinking and feeling that, and then you reflect on your thoughts and feelings about that from, say, 6 months ago or a year ago, would it be the same? I would hazard a guess to say no. And that shows just how far you've come with all of this. Okay, that understanding and realization of what it is that you need to release. And this is a full moon. Emotions, okay, emotional home. The moon represents our emotional home. If you've got a moon in Scorpio, then this could be very heightened for you. If you've got a moon in Taurus, this could be very heightened for you. Look at the other fixed signs, Leo and Aquarius. If you've got a moon in those signs, it could also be heightened for you. Okay, that's not to say that the other signs are excluded from that, because you're going to know if your emotions are heightened during this time, because you're going to know what needs to be purged and what needs to be released. And it might be that nothing needs to, but if it does, you're going to know about it, of course. It's unique to everybody. So this is about deep stuff, as I was saying. It's scorpionic, it's deep. This is resurrection type energy. So this is from the depth of the soul. And it's potentially challenging our reality because of the opposition energy with Taurus. It could be potentially challenging our worth and values at this time, because Taurus represents worth and values and resources as well. So we need to understand the soul essence is in Taurus, heightening and giving us that support from a worth and values perspective. Jupiter and Uranus are saying, reminding us then about the change and the expansion that is certainly available to us further to that conjunction. But what do we need to release that's currently blocking that from our path? And that might be where we need to go deep to understand what that is, who that is. Okay, so looking at it from that perspective, a deeper perspective, but also a wider awareness and a higher perspective as well. Okay, because if you take yourself out of the equation and you're looking at yourself from a higher perspective, if you were advising somebody else, okay, then that can be different to how we view it just when we're trying to get to the bottom of things in our own mind, because we allow the mind to overthink. And instead of dropping into the soul and feeling into this is encouraging us to feel into it, not only from a worth and values point of view, from the soul essence support of the cosmos, but from the deep emotions from the moon in Scorpio. Okay, so it might not be easy. It might not be easy, but this is to help us. It is resurrection energy. Okay. So there are a few things I want to say about this with all these lines going on that you're going to see. Now, the green lines, if you can see them as green on your screen, represent trines. So they are the positive aspects. And the trine I just referred to that was there during the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, I haven't marked out, but you might be able to see that triangle that's in the middle. Okay. But the green lines I've highlighted, so first of all, from the moon, okay, there's a trine to Vesta in Cancer, and there is a trine to Pars Fortunae in Gemini. And Pars Fortunae, pot of fortune, okay? So when it comes to our sacred flame, that's the Vesta energy, what gives us that spark? What inspires us? Who inspires us? Who is our creative muse? What is our creative muse? Where are we inspired to create from? Where is that sacred flame for us? Is it a passion project? Is it a person? What is it? And this is about feeling into it with the Cancerian energy. Okay. Creation is a massive part of this, not only from the Vesta perspective, because I attribute that energy to Goddess Bridget. So that's all about the sacred flame. That is about creation. But the feminine energy of Cancer is also about creation because it's divine feminine. And not only that, the moon rules the sign of Cancer. So it's lovely that there is a trine here between the full moon and Vesta in Cancer, because there is a nurturing essence to this, and it's a harmonious aspect, of course, a trine. But if we're fully on board with what our sacred flame is for us, and we know what inspires us to create, that's going to also enable us to release what is not inspiring us. Okay, and that is what is going to bring in the success of Pars Fortunae, even if there may be a bit of investigation that's needed, because at this point, Pars Fortunae is in Gemini. So might need to look at something from two sides to understand, to weigh something up. But that can also be supported by the moon. Now, I mentioned before, didn't I? Because I don't want to confuse things. I mentioned before about, I felt that it was a fixed view, a fixed approach in terms of what needs to be released. Now, this whole thing with the Gemini energy, and I just said about maybe needing to look at something from both sides, that's a fair point. You may have already done that. You may have already had things highlighted to you, and you've had to investigate or be curious and look at something from a couple of sides to understand, do I want that? Don't I want that? And understanding what that is then allows for the success in the purging and detachment from what isn't serving you. Okay, if that makes sense. And the sacred flame is a big part of that, because if we're driven and inspired in a certain area, but maybe not so much in another, well, that's looking at two different things, isn't it? But it doesn't have to be unique to that. It could be any situation. Okay, it could be any situation, and certainly where there needs to be kind of a logical approach as well. Okay, and I know that's the mind, but a logical approach in terms of what is right for you on your path, okay, and what isn't, and the success that can come from that by understanding you're heading towards your sacred flame energy and not what doesn't serve you. Okay. Now, there is another trine that is between the Sun and Juno. So Juno represents love and marriage, but I often say, well, this is about commitment energy, because marriage is a commitment, but it's not just associated with that in my view. It can relate to supportive partnerships, committed relationships of any kind, and of course, soul contracts. So the sun, the soul essence, is supporting this. So there is big emphasis here, because of that, on soul contracts. Soul of the cosmos and Juno, commitment. Okay, so soul commitments, not only with other people, but the commitment to our own soul. Okay, so there is a double message here. This is about the support from the cosmos when it comes to soul contracts, but also the support from the cosmos when it comes to commitment to the self within our reality, which basically means putting ourselves first. And what's that in alignment with? The sovereign energy that I was talking about. So the sun and Juno can work beautifully together in that way. But there are some other things to pay attention to. And this is why I said commitment is quite a big thing for this reading, because we've got a square going across to Pallas. And Pallas is in retrograde at the moment in Sagittarius. Pallas is also feminine energy, as is Juno. And Pallas represents love and beauty, often attributed to goddess Aphrodite type energy. And I've been saying quite a while there's an aspect of self-love here, okay, because we need to focus on the self. Squares can be challenging energy. So this commitment to ourself could be challenged by lack of self-love. And we might be just discovering that because Pallas is in Sagittarius. So it's learning, it's discovery, it's a quest in that way. And there is a spiritual aspect to that as well. So it might be that understanding of needing to really engage with the spiritual essence within to understand how beautiful we are on a soul level, to understand the commitments we need to make to ourselves. Okay. There is also a Sesqui square to Ceres. So that's in that, what I thought was an orange line. I don't know what it's looking like for you on the screen. As well as another Sesqui square to Chiron in Aries. So you might be thinking, oh God, there's more challenges than harmonious aspects here when it comes to commitments. But this is about understanding the challenging energy and working with it. And I did say that with full moons, and especially this one, because it's full moon in Scorpio, it might not be easy because it's deep stuff. So this is about the challenges that could come in relation to commitments, the expansion of those in our reality, Ceres and Capricorn, and also the impact they might have on our healing journey when it comes to our sovereignty. So first of all, if we look at soul contracts, soul commitments with other people, and they can be with anybody. Okay, could we have soul contracts with many people? This is about understanding there is support from the cosmos here with that expansive sun energy, if we're in alignment with our worth and values. Because remember, we need to be vibrating at the same level. And so that's great, we've got that. But the challenge might be in the self-love aspect of recognizing our worth in that way, the self-love, and also being open to expand something like this in our reality and how it might challenge our own path moving forward. So if we're aware of those challenges, with that Pars Fortunae energy that I was just reminded about, thank you, this is about potentially looking at it from two different sides. So yes, we could be looking at those challenges, but then turning it around and saying, okay, well, if I'm aware of that, then I need to make sure that this soul contract, this commitment, is actually in the direction of the path in which I'm heading. And if it's not, maybe it does need to be released. Maybe it needs to change. Maybe this is something that's come up that needs to be changed in some way. It needs to evolve in some way to then be in alignment, because that's part of the healing journey as well, with our sovereignty. But also being open to expansion in our reality. If we're not open to it in our reality, the universe can't deliver it in our reality. Okay, so that's also where the challenge comes in. So we need to look at it from those sides. That's what brings the success in. with the full moon, the illumination of that potentially with the full moon. Okay. If we're looking at commitment to the self, then of course, yes. If we are trying to commit to ourselves in terms of following what we want to do, then we need to love ourselves to do that, don't we? So that might be a challenge, to accept that love from ourselves, to say, no, we are worthy of this, heading in that direction. Being open to expansion in our reality. Okay, so being open to how commitment to the self might change our lives drastically, because that can be scary for some people. Okay, and then how that's going to impact our sovereignty. Well, the challenge might be the belief in the self enough to be empowered to make those changes, to make those steps, because we need the self-love aspect as well, and to be open to receive it. But also, okay, if we've weighed things up, this is about not hesitating now. This is about being that sovereign leader. And that is what is going to enable us to be more empowered in our sovereignty, to be committed to ourselves. But that could be a huge step. Okay, that's where the challenging energy might come in. Okay, the sesqui squares are not as challenging as the squares, in my view. So we've got more of that challenge with the self-love going on. Okay, whether that's a commitment to the self or a commitment with other people, soul contract with another person. Okay, the self-love aspect is paramount here. Okay, beautiful. Now there is another square, and that's going from the sun across to Pluto. So the full moon is happening in Scorpio, ruled by Pluto. So we don't really want to see a square, do we, with the sun, because that's indicating challenge when it comes to, you know, the soul, and it comes to that transformation. But I feel the reason for that is because of us having to commit to ourselves and or somebody else in this way. Okay, I feel it strongly about the self because of the sovereignty. But it can resonate for both, okay? But I'm feeling that commitment to the self. So yes, it might be challenging. It means we've got to push through. We've got to persevere, because the soul wants us to commit to the self, because the sun is in trine to Juno. So the soul wants this. But the soul might be fearing the depth of the transformation that's needed, or the depth of the transformation that's coming. Okay, so if that's resonating for you, ask yourself, am I scared of actually going through the cocoon and emerging a completely different person, but the person I was always destined to be? Or am I fearful about actually committing to myself and taking ownership and being accountable for myself? Where are the fears? Am I scared about something new? Am I scared about my reality changing? So you could just ask yourself those questions if it's resonating, okay? But the soul wants the commitment, because the trine is there from the sun to Juno. And by the way, they're both in earth signs. So that's about the physical reality, the 3D. The soul wants to experience that physical reality of commitment. But the depths of the transformation to get there might feel challenging. And because of the full moon in Scorpio, of course, committing to the self and or another person and or a soul contract may require detachment from certain stuff that is painful to detach from, even if that's fears of not being good enough, or perhaps another commitment, or I don't know what it might be, okay? There's many different things. It could simply be a thought that is not serving us, and I'm going to talk about self-sabotage in a minute. It could be something like that. But because it's been a pattern that's been a part of our lives for so long, to step away from that, which is like a false comfort blanket, is like a step out of a comfort zone, and it can feel a bit strange. And it's not to say that the transformation is not going to happen. This is indicating a challenge. So we need to remember the soul is aligned with commitment here, with the sun in trine to Juno. And the moon, our emotional home, wants to be in line with our sacred flame energy to bring success. Moon in trine to Vesta and Pars Fortunae. But it might feel challenging to give ourselves that self-love, to be open to this expansion in our reality and nurturing that can be brought from it. It may feel challenging in terms of how it might impact the sovereign journey because of standing up for ourselves or actually following what we want for a change. And it may just feel challenging because we're still going through that cocoon of transformation and we don't quite know what's going to unfold or how it's going to unfold. Okay, so all of that could be relevant. Now let's talk about a couple of sextiles. Juno is in sextile to Vesta as well. So I've said about the moon being in trine. Well, Juno is in sextile to Vesta. So you can't get any more clearer than that. This is about committing to that which is the sacred flame energy for you. So when we follow what we want to do, what we're inspired by, and we're open to expansion in our reality, and we're open to commitment because we want to experience that in our reality, we can purge what we need to with this full moon in Scorpio. It brings about success. We can step into our sovereignty more and we can transform beyond our wildest dreams. That might be scary. That might feel uncomfortable because we've got to detach from what's not serving us to get us to that point. Okay. The other sextile is between Neptune and Pluto, but there's also opposition energy that I wanted to point out between Lilith and Neptune. I'm just going to turn the light on. Bear with me a second. Because it's getting a bit darker, isn't it now? So yeah, there is that sextile. So that's also harmonious. So our intuition is guiding us in terms of this transformation that's needed, but are we listening to it? Excuse me. So Neptune is at home in Pisces, but is at the end. So it can feel challenging. Okay. Our intuition might be telling us truths that we didn't want to hear, or maybe this is all part of this sudden realization that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction brought, and our intuition was like, whoa, overwhelmed with all of these downloads, and this is what's going on, and you know, this is what needs to change. But essentially, this harmonious aspect here is about understanding our intuition is guiding us. It's our inner compass. It's our connection to the divine. It's source energy. It's our soul speaking to us, basically. Okay, so we know the soul wants commitment because the sun is in trine to Juno. So if that's the case, our intuition may be telling us that, and that's what's going to enable us to get through the transformation because we're being guided by our intuition. But with the opposition energy to Lilith in Virgo, this is about surrendering to how things need to be. Okay, surrendering the outcome or needing to be in control of every little detail. There needs to be more of a flow with it and to be open to that. And that can also feel daunting. That's why it's opposition energy, it's push-pull energy. And that's also with Mars. So when I saw this was like, okay, Mars and Neptune, there's opposition energy with Lilith. So we've got shadow feminine energy, opposite masculine energy with Neptune, so spiritual essence. But when we look at Lilith and we're looking at the shadow side coming up, we need to look at the shadow side of Neptune and the shadow side of Mars. So shadow side of Neptune, deception, illusion, sabotage. Shadow side of Mars, I feel relates to ego, because of course the masculine drive is about having that courage and gusto to go after what we want. It's very sovereign. That's why Mars rules Aries. Mars is in Pisces. There is a softer touch here. However, having the courage to go after something when it's aligned with your path, your purpose, your vision is something, but pursuing something from a place of ego is not aligned with the sovereign path. So that's where, with the shadow aspects coming up, we need to be mindful of that. So we need to avoid operating from a place of ego, deception, illusion, and self-sabotage. We don't want our ego, which, by the way, our ego is there to protect us, but I'm talking about unhealthy masculine ego. Okay, the shadow side of Mars here is what I'm talking about. So we don't want our ego, our unhealthy ego, to dictate what we're doing, because that's coming from a place that's not aligned with our sovereign path. So it's almost like doing something because we believe that other people want us to do that, or doing something because it looks good. We need to understand that Mars is in Pisces, Neptune is in Pisces, and we've seen what's going on here with everything else I've mentioned, but it needs to be led by the soul and not from ego, unhealthy ego. The shadow aspects of that might come up, and that could also be something that needs to be released and purged for this full moon. Okay, could be illuminated. If you're dealing with unhealthy ego in a masculine, that could be illuminated. Okay, there's a number of different scenarios here, but it's whatever resonates for you, if at all. This is just saying that there's opposition energy between the shadow feminine and the masculine energy, plus the Neptunian energy. So we need to be mindful. We don't want to sabotage this transformation because of unhealthy ego. We don't want to sabotage our path because of unhealthy ego. Okay, we need to instead understand where that might be coming from and why we might be called to do that, because maybe there's something within us that needs to be healed. And it could be a pattern that's coming up. And if you catch it, you're aware of it, well, that's definitely progress, isn't it? Because quite often it happens automatically. We don't realize until after the event, and we have to go through a Saturnian lesson to learn it. So this is about really understanding what might be coming up, what might have come up during the eclipse portal, what might have come up during the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and what might come up with this illumination of the full moon in Scorpio. Deep stuff. Okay, so there could be a lot of unhealthy ego death going on, and the realization of that can be quite hard as well, because it's often seen as a sort of what's the word, like not really being or embodying that masculine energy of going after what we want, because perhaps throughout all that time there's not been a realization. It's come from an unhealthy ego place, but realization of that can challenge the masculinity regardless of gender. Okay, we've got masculine and feminine within us, so it can challenge that masculine drive within us. So we need to really hold firm with that reality of, okay, if that's coming up for us, we need to understand why. Have we defaulted to that from a reactive place because of situations that have hurt us in the past, or our power has been challenged in some way, you know, whatever it might be, any pattern that could be coming up, Lilith is going to show us this. But what I'm saying with this opposition energy particularly is that we need to be mindful of self-sabotage. We don't want to undo all the good work we've been doing. So there is emphasis on the soul here. There is a trine. I've not highlighted it in green, but there is that trine that's obviously going to Uranus and Jupiter as well as Ceres, because that was the triangle I referred to before, and that was there when the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happened. So expansion in our realities that brings major expansive change and luck when we're in alignment with our worth and values. So if we can come from that place, then that is going to enable us to get through the shadow work and things like this coming up that's just causing that kind of like bumping heads of the opposition energy, believing in oneself and not operating from a place of unhealthy ego, but instead trusting the inner compass of the intuition from a place of light, not from a place of shadow, okay, because we don't want to deceive ourselves by telling ourselves we can't do something when we can do it. Let's get in line with our sovereignty as well, okay? Hope that makes sense. The other thing I was drawn to, and it's very interesting because I was drawn to this when I looked at the charts. You can see I've marked up 2 items there because I was just drawn to the fact that they were 15 degrees. And I'm thinking, why am I drawn to the fact that they're 15 degrees? Okay, because there's not really an aspect that's going on between them. Of course, we've got Saturn in Pisces in the house of the divine, serving up these lessons, okay, dishing out karmic returns left, right, and center, getting us in alignment with our spiritual truth. And then we've got the North Node in Aries. So, of course, that's our path, our guiding light, the direction in which we're heading, and it relates to sovereignty, being the leader of our own life. But the interesting thing was, when I looked at the chart for Mercury stationing direct on the 25th, Mercury would have retrograded back to 15 degrees. So therefore will be the same degrees as the North Node. That's what that conjunction is. So it really feels like at this moment of the full moon that there is also emphasis on the lessons that Saturn has been teaching us, okay, because he might have been teaching us certain stuff that's enabling us to release certain things or purge certain things on this full moon. And it might be that there's illumination from the full moon of these lessons. Okay, there's definitely a link here to Saturn and the North Node. Yes, okay, we're heading forward on our path of sovereignty. So anything that's not in alignment with this path of sovereignty, we can work with the lunar energy to release. Okay, and then that moment Mercury stations direct, that's all about speaking up, as I've mentioned before. So I was just drawn to that. Just very interesting to me. Okay, so it's linked to Saturn and the North Node as well. We need to understand karmic situations have been at play as well. So there could be a lot of releasing and purging relating to karma that has come up from situations that we've been dealing with in the past, in the recent past, in the distant past, in past lives, whatever it might be. Okay, there's been a lot coming up, and it's been quite heavy from a collective energy point of view. This is about now. Although it's a full moon in Scorpio, it's deep. It's challenging us to go deep, and that can be uncomfortable for the reasons I've mentioned. But this is a beautiful time of expansion and change that can bring in success. If we're aware of our worth and values, we're open to it, we show ourselves that self-love, we make that commitment to ourselves to move forward, and we release what we need to, okay, and purge what we need to. Be open to further illumination as well, because through that, even if that might be uncomfortable, this is also showing us what we might need to release. So it's all for our highest good. We're aware of it, okay? And that's what's going to enable the transformation. But let's not sabotage how far we've come already, okay? Beautiful. So now I am going to just show you this very quickly. This is the chart of the UK with that full moon in Scorpio event. Okay, and it's just to show you where it's happening. So for the UK, it's happening in the 4th house of foundations and family. Okay, so deep stuff. Remember Scorpio deep? That could be deep within our foundations. So think of that as the soul. It's the depth of the soul. And that's why it might be heightened. Okay, but we've got a lot going on. I mean, the sun is in the 10th house, so that's inner authority and work. It might be that there are commitments at work that are at play here, but that's only going to resonate for a handful of people. Okay, and I say a handful, the collective is big, so it's a big handful, but you know what I mean. But there is a lot of energy in the 10th house. We're still being called to look at our inner authority, and it relates perfectly to worth and values and sovereignty, because we've got some Taurus and Aries energy in there as well. But that's where the UK's natal sun is. So very much emphasis on challenging the soul when it comes to our inner authority, 100%. We've got Lilith in the 3rd house. Okay, so that opposition with Mars and Neptune that I spoke about in the 9th house. Okay, it's the discovery of that. It's the discovery of where we might have sabotaged things in the past because of operating from a place of unhealthy ego, or where that might be happening now. Okay, in order to catch that so that we can release that and purge it if it's not serving us, and how that might be challenging our expression and vice versa. Okay, where might we need to speak up, even if it's to ourselves, about that, and be truthful about that. Saturn is also in the 9th house, so yeah, learning those lessons of Saturn is very important. And the North Node in the 10th house, as I say, inner authority, path and purpose. We've also got that trine there, if I can just find it again, with the moon and Vesta and Pars Fortunae in the 12th house. So again, that's like hidden stuff. So yeah, the moon, we're talking about subconscious stuff, deep stuff in our foundations, but also there might be some spiritual stuff going on in terms of the sacred flame. So it could be some kind of spiritual awakening that's going on here. And that's what's also going to bring in the success, because we're evolving on a spiritual level as well. Okay, Juno is in the 2nd house. So Juno is actually in the house of worth and values. So this commitment aspect relates heavily to worth and values here, and getting in alignment with that, because we've got Sarah's in the 6th house, daily routines and schedules, and also where we are of service to people. So there might be a bit of a challenge when it comes to committing to where we're being of service to other people. There could be a challenge when it comes to, okay, I want to commit to myself in this way, but it's going to mean changing my daily routines and schedules. And that can be uncomfortable because it's a change. Okay, it might be that. There is also that Sesqui square going to Chiron in Aries in the 10th house. So yes, challenging our inner authority, because we need to believe in ourselves. And that's where Pallas comes in the 5th house, and that square going across definitely relates to love, 5th house. So self-love, we need to show ourselves that self-love to commit to ourselves. If it's a commitment with somebody else or a soul contract with someone else, we need to come from a place of unconditional love. And we might just be learning about that and discovering about that. So feelings might be challenging the commitment aspect when it relates to worth and values, 5th house and 2nd house. So that might be why it's challenging to commit, because you've got to believe that you're worthy of it, and being open to that expansion, as I was saying, because maybe it's going to affect daily routines and schedules. But, you know, ultimately, this energy is working for us. And Pluto's in the 7th house of relationships with people, places, things. So that sextile with Neptune is, you know, our intuition. We're learning about what our intuition is telling us, trusting it as an inner compass, not deceiving ourselves with falsities about not being worthy of anything, and how that's going to influence our relationships with people, places, things, and how they can transform in that way. If we look at the 11th house of connections with others, that's where Jupiter and Uranus is. So this major expansive change or sudden realization or aha moment of clarity could relate to our connections with other people. And that's what might be now challenging the commitment aspects. But the beauty is, in the 10th house of inner authority, we've got that trine from the sun to Juno in the 2nd. So the soul, the inner authority of the soul, wants that commitment and believes in the worthiness from a soul level. But we need to show ourselves that self-love to believe in the commitment. Okay. I hope that helps in some way to explain what's going on. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, what's interesting, actually, I'm just looking at this. What's interesting is that there's nothing in the 8th house. So there's nothing in the UK's natal 8th house, but also nothing transiting through. So that's Scorpio's house, and that's where the full moon is happening. So this is really relying on the full moon alone to guide us in this way from a deep place, it feels. And the 8th house can stand for like power and passion, okay, but it is deep stuff as well. So there's nothing there. So this might come out of the blue. This might actually be a whoa, you know, that kind of illumination, a bit like the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction for some. Okay, right, I'm going to stop sharing now. Let's take some cards. Okay. My glasses back on for this. Right, okay, so I have got here Queen of the Moon Oracle. Let's go for Queen of the Moon, first of all. Oh. Okay, thank you. Literally, you just saw me do that, and I split the deck randomly, and this is what happened. So it split like that, right on the one that was upside down. And it says there, purity. Do you know what I'm feeling from this? Because that was very bizarre. Very bizarre. That was almost like a magic trick that happened there. Very bizarre, but completely aligned. You know, I believe in synchronicities like this. So this here for me is because she's got this, I don't know what it is, a hat or a scarf that's actually covering her eyes as well as her head. That's almost, it feels like, and there's a couple of things coming through to me, it feels like this is about trusting your intuition to guide you, because of course that's covered up, but you've got your third eye, obviously, and you've got the power to go within to meditate and connect with your intuition. And because the crown chakra is also covered, it's almost like protecting that as well. Okay, and coming from a place of the pure white light, because when we're open to source and we're open to spirit in that way, we need to make sure we're aligned with the pure white light. Okay, not anything else, because as you evolve and open up more spiritually, more can come through, but not always from that kind of place. Okay, and I won't even say the words on here, but you have to be mindful of that. So this is about understanding there needs to be some protection to what you're trying to visualize. And remember, okay, if we look at what I just showed you in the astrology with Lilith opposite Neptune, shadow side of Neptune, deception. So we don't want to align with that, because we don't want to be receiving deceptive messages. Okay, we need to be trusting in our intuition to guide us on the path forward that's best aligned for us. Okay, and we can guide us that way via our intuition, but we need to make sure we're connecting with that in that way. And also, what I feel is the other message coming through, it's like trusting in the unknown, because of not being able to necessarily see the path ahead, but trusting in that divine aspect. Okay, the purity that comes from that. But that involves surrender. Okay, so that's another message coming through. But you see, that was hidden like that, face up in this deck, and I split it at that point. So it wanted to be seen. It's card number 30, so that reduces to a 3. Manifestation, of course, that will be for the new moon in Taurus. It'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. But the period between then and now is really about this full moon, you know, releasing, purging what's needed in order to then, I can't believe it, there is another one. This is unreal. Okay. Patience. That's card 36, that reduces to a 9. 3 and 6 is 9. And look, she's looking at some kind of portal. So it's almost like understanding, yeah, this is about, you know, because obviously she's looking at this portal. So she's aware that there is something different waiting for her, but may not be able to see it all fully. Okay, and it's having the patience to allow things to unfold in that way. I don't understand what's going on with this deck, but I'm going to go with it. These two are also facing upwards. Self-love and beginnings. What was I talking about just now? There we go. That's card number 6. And then beginnings is card number 2. Okay, that's a portal in itself as well. But there is something new here that we're trying to birth for ourselves. And that's the portal, isn't it? You know, that's the portal. And this change or this sudden realization perhaps has shown us, look, there's the doorway over there. It's that situation, it's that person, it's that opportunity. There's the new beginning. But do you love yourself enough to go for it? It's very dramatic. My heating turned off then. That was like a mic drop moment. And yeah, on the bottom, having the faith to birth something new. There is trust in that as well. And yeah, there we go. Release what needs to be released. That's the full moon energy. Self-reflection. Yeah, there could be some mirrored signs coming through. I was seeing that in the astrology. I think it was for the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. There was some mirroring going on. And remember that people we meet, they do mirror things to us. They show us things that we need to look at. So that could also be something as well. Okay, fabulous. Very unusual way to get the cards from that deck, but we'll go with it. Okay, let's go with the Moonology deck then. What do we have from Moonology for the collective, please? And again, this may not resonate. The collective is vast. And also, energy is fluid. So this is the energy at this moment in time, okay, as I'm pulling it for the full moon. But energy moves. Free will is always at play. We make choices, it changes the energy, okay? Your dreams need a practical plan. Now, this is full moon energy, but it's full moon in Taurus. And that won't be with us until we're in Scorpio season, because obviously that'll be opposite the sun at that point. But it's saying that, further saying, it's about grounding into our reality what it is we want to achieve. And to get there, we might need a practical plan. So we need to feel into it, of course, but we then need to make those steps, make those plans to anchor it into our reality in that fixed way. On the bottom, full moon eclipse, conclusions are within reach. Okay, so for those of you who haven't had anything illuminated, this could be the moment. I would hazard a guess that a lot of you have had something illuminated, even if it's very small, because this energy that we've had with the eclipse portal and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has been massive. Okay, so conclusions are within reach. Maintain that positivity and be open to receive the conclusions. If we're blocking that clarity, the messages can't come through. You are good enough. Also full moon energy, but it's full moon in Virgo. So you are good enough. Okay, underneath that, your commitment is being tested. Well, how interesting is that? Because I've just spoken about commitment, and commitment to the self is being tested, I would say. Are you going to carry on this path that's, you know, in alignment with what other people want, or are you actually going to focus on what you want? Okay, your commitment is being tested. Are you going to commit to yourself? If it's to do with a soul contract, another commitment, things might need to be stepped out a bit, if that even makes sense. Conclusions are within reach, so there is clarity coming in relation to it. You are good enough for it, but your commitment to it is being tested, and that could be from the emotions that's coming up. And of course, the full moon in Scorpio is going to bring deep emotions that could challenge, if I can find it, the self-love. Okay, because maybe there is a new beginning that is available to you with somebody, and you need to release something else. And that could be fears around being worthy, enough for it. Okay. So have the faith in birthing something new. Wisdom of the Oracle. See what we have. For the wisdom of the Oracle. Okay, I am going to start that again. Ground the energy, please. Okay, very important, breathe. This is about that meditation, that sanctuary for ourselves, which again relates to commitment to the self, doesn't it? Because we need to make time for ourselves. That's where the introspection comes in, but also being present. That enables us to be present. So if we're being asked to have patience and to surrender, to allow things to unfold, we might need to practice on being present, okay, and breathing. There is a flow to that, beautiful. Yeah, trusting in the flow. Okay, there is potential to co-create, whether that is just simply with the divine, okay, through our manifestations and so on, but we need to ensure that we're releasing and detaching from that which isn't serving us to free up the space, of course. But it could be saying about, you know, co-creating with somebody else, and it's understanding the wisdom that comes from that, and the wisdom that's going to lead you to that point also, but going the distance is important here. Okay. And then we have thinker. So let's not overthink situations. This is where these two are quite a contrast. Okay. So we don't want to overthink. We do need to engage the logic sometimes. And certainly if we're being asked to make a practical plan, of course we need to think. But this is about this step first. Okay. We don't want to overthink, tie ourselves up in knots. We want to breathe, find that sanctuary within ourselves, understand what our intuition is telling us, be present, breathe through it all. Okay, allow the emotions to flow. And then when we understand what we need to release and detach from, then we can possibly think about how that's going to happen and what we need to do. Okay, that's going to enable the practical plan. But let's not overthink. I'm very much drawn to number 44. That's a master number. Okay. Feel there's another one in here. What else do we need to know, please? Thank you. Beautiful. Straight away. New life. How many more messages do we need on that? That's the one I was trying to find. Conclusions are within reach. Okay. Think of that also as ending a cycle that's not serving you in order to step into a new life, new beginning. That's so beautiful. That's somebody poised and ready, liberated to accept the new life as an authentic sovereign being. And it's all about taking yourself to that place and imagining, with that blue sky thinking almost, of dreaming your reality into being, which I've said before. Okay, beautiful. I love it. Right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for staying with me if you've stayed for this long. I like to go in depth with the astrology where I can, of course, because I do believe if there's messages that need to come out, they will be needed by somebody, even if it's just one of you. So yeah, I hope that this finds you well. I'm sending you love and blessings for the full moon in Scorpio. And just remember that, yes, it is deep because it's Scorpio. So there is this potential challenge to detachment and feelings associated with that, because it's the full moon, it's the emotional home. But we need to be inspired instead by the emotions that are driving us forward, in terms of that soul essence that is wanting us to commit to ourselves, believing that we are worthy of better in some situations, and that we can achieve it in our reality. If we don't believe that, then of course we're going to be feeling like, oh, I can't detach from this, because how can that new life want me? How can I be worthy of that? So we need to understand where those thoughts are coming from first. We can't just say, oh yes, I need to detach from that, but it's actually still there, because it's a pattern. It will keep coming up. Instead, we need to understand why it's coming up. It's almost like acknowledging, I understand why I don't believe I'm worthy of this. Because maybe people or situations I've experienced have shown me certain things, and it's led me to go into this overthinking, and that's what ties me up in this confusion. And then I understand that I deal with situations in certain ways that don't serve me, because I'm reacting to a situation. Whereas instead, what I need to do is show myself the self-love, first and foremost, that I'm worthy of change that's in alignment with my soul and my path. I'm worthy of new beginnings and a new life. I'm open to getting the clarity. I am good enough. People are showing me that I'm good enough. And people that aren't are also showing me I am good enough, okay? Because I'm learning from that. I have faith to move forward on my path. I'm willing to be open to create with the divine and or a soul connection, okay? And I'm going to give myself the space to breathe and really reflect on what it is that I want, because I know I'm worthy of this new beginning. And I will release what I need to in order to step through this portal of transformation. As I say, with Scorpio, it's resurrection energy. That's why it's deep. And in tarot, it's attributed by the death and rebirth card. Okay. In fact, I might just show you an image. Bear with me. If I can find the card. This is the Lightseers Tarot. My favorite deck. What do we think? Is it going to be at the end? Actually, I'll show you that one as well. There we go. Almost at the end, but not quite. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your patience. Right, first of all, I was going to show you that one because the moon was there. So when you think of this full moon, and she's actually going to the depths, okay? Now, I attribute this to Piscean energy. Some readers will say it's Pisces and Cancer because it's that depth of the emotions, okay, with the water signs. But it's not Scorpio, even though Scorpio is a water sign. But this is about having to go deep and needing to find that balance within, okay? But going to the depths can reveal stuff that's hidden, of course. So that just came up for me when I saw it as a reminder that that's what this full moon is all about. And this is the death and rebirth card in this particular tarot deck, okay, which I find beautiful because this is about that portal and it's about transformation. So when you can embrace the transformation that's needed, it enables you to step through into that portal of light and you emerge as this new powerful being, but the being that you were always destined to be. Okay, it's just a beautiful depiction of it in my view, but to be quite grounded in it, because the red to me just makes me think of the root chakra. So we need to be grounded in our choices when it comes to transformation and be willing to go through the death and rebirth process. So by that, I mean needing to be okay with closing out cycles, putting an end to something, even if it is a self-limiting thought or belief, in order to go through the rebirth, because we can't expect the rebirth if we're still holding on to that outdated thought. Okay, that's why it's death and rebirth, because something has to end in order for something to begin. Okay, and the other one is this one. The Tower is Scorpionic energy. Okay, so it is that lightning in this particular deck, lightning hitting this tree, if that's what it is, in order to cause destruction, but actually it's to enable something else to emerge. So there is transformation around that as well. And that's why when we talk about the Tower and Tower moments, it's all about change. It's change that's needed. And that's what's been highlighted with this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction as well that we've had recently. So that was just to show you, I just wanted to show you that one really, but obviously the other two were bonus ones for you. So I hope you found some benefit to that. It's essentially embracing the deep transformative energy of Scorpio when it comes to our emotional home with the full moon, what could be illuminated to us, but also what we need to release. And if we're purging a lot of emotions around certain things that are not working for us, that's helping us release the energy. Okay, so I'm sending you love and blessings. Take care, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.